Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. Front runners, welcome in. Got a decent positive response on that one. Maybe we should just settle on that. We've got a lot to talk about. Some positive, some negative. I've personally been living in the land of negativity since the Lakers are now no longer playoff bound. But we've got a lot to break down today. And let's dive into it. Keith Smith joining me at Keith Smith NBA. How are you doing, man? I'm still looking forward to watching Moon Knight. I think I'm going to get to that a little later tonight, hopefully.
Well, I mean, why not, right? You know, nothing else to do for July. You can hang out with me and break down playoffs completely unbiased with no rooting interest at all.
I think I'm going to have to accept that invitation. We're going to have to work something out with that. We'll break down some playoff games. I think that's going to be something that's coming. But we're going to have a bit of a drought here on the Lakers side of things.
Yeah, it's I had to this morning. I had to tweet, hey, only one team can win number 18 now. So, let's go get that done. But yeah, it's I mean, hey, it was funny. I described it as to a friend of mine as I was like, it's kind of like watching that baseball game when the team's in the third inning, and it's over, but it's kind of that slow march to the end.
Sure.
Like that's what it felt like on the Lakers over the last week. It was like
over the last
it's probably over, but
they've won 4 games since the All-Star break. It's been the last few months of this slow march of like, oh my gosh. Like that was in the Jake Fisher piece yesterday.
Yeah.
He basically commented that like the Spurs were not trying to make the play-in. Just the Lakers refused to win. And so the Spurs just went, oh, well, all right, I guess.
Yeah, I think the Spurs at some point in the last couple of weeks were like, well, we might as well.
Yeah.
Go for this. So this is just right to our two relevant interests. On January 21st, like after games played January 21st, Celtics were 23-24. Lakers were 23-23. Basically the same record.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, Celtics have gone 26-6, and the Lakers have gone 8-25. So talk about two teams who chose different paths down the stretch. That's
very much so.
I had one Lakers fan reply to me and said, the only thing is I just don't want a 50-loss season.
Oh my gosh. That's horrible.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
And he's like, you can't even turn and be excited because cool, like we're like losing games. Like this is great because we have a pick. Because he's like, we don't even have our pick. So so that was also it there. And then I did see somebody too. Pelicans fans are loving this. I said Pelicans fans and Celtics fans are like the living embodiment of the like epic handshake meme. Where it's like the two guys are like, yeah, like in agreement, like because they're both thrilled today. But yeah, man, it's just But plenty of time. We'll get deep into that over the weeks to come.
It's so funny. I've had so many, like I did that show in New Orleans a few days ago, and they're asking me about do Lakers fans feel the same way about the Pelicans? I'm like, no. That's what, and Lakers fans keep messaging me like saying, oh, could the Lakers trade for Damian Lillard? Like, you guys don't get it. The Blazers hate the Lakers. Like, hate the Lakers. Like, the Lakers don't feel anything towards the Blazers or anything towards the Pelicans. But there are other teams out there that hate the Lakers. Lakers fans, though, they're blind to it because they're like, we don't hate that team. Why would we? And that's where we're at. So,
and trade what for Damian?
Oh, yeah. No, but that's just
right.
Yeah. It's not realistic.
But again,
they're not true.
We'll spend plenty of time getting into those topics. But let's start with the one Laker topic we do have. Was in Jake Fisher's piece about the Lakers. Lakers won't seriously consider trading Anthony Davis. I guess there's probably a good segment of people watching and listening that are like, yeah, no, duh. But it's been put out there is, hey, if that's your kind of way to get out of this, if it's all right, hey, we can move him, get a collection of draft picks, young players, or not even necessarily young players, but just other players, build up our depth around LeBron and go that way. It was funny, I did see, gosh, I forget who it was now, but it was somebody who was like, hey, LeBron's had success with those kind of teams before. It's been quite a while. Now, it's been 5-6 years since LeBron's had success with that kind of team where it was LeBron and a whole bunch of guys. And that's even unfair too, right? Because Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love, those weren't just
Mm-hmm.
guys, right? Those guys were good. There were a couple Cavs teams in the course of his first run for sure that probably fit that bill. But yeah, it's one of those things where as I look at it, yeah, I mean, they're not going to trade
No.
Anthony Davis. They're gonna figure this out another way to try and reset this. It's not going to be AD.
I mean, Eric Pincus put out there today that, like, essentially, if LeBron lets the Lakers know he's not going to sign an extension when he's eligible to on August 4th, then maybe you see the nuclear option that they trade both of them. But that would probably be the scenario, and that's not in any way a likely scenario. But that would be the path where if they said, you know what, LeBron's not going to stick around, he'd like to move on. AD might as well move him too at this point. That's it. Otherwise, yeah, they're not gonna go trade. And by far the most likely thing is that both LeBron and Anthony Davis are still Lakers next season.
Let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. So I don't remember, what was this, 3 seasons ago? You had LeBron, but you had all the kids, all the guys that had been kind of the byproduct of the down years. So Ingram and Ball and Kuzma and Julius Randle might have been Josh gone by that point, I think. But yeah, Josh Hart. But you had kind of your kids. And I get it, right? We all get attached to the players that we draft, probably more than anybody else. But all knowing what you know now, let's say that is the way it went. Let's say LeBron was like, you know what, I'm done. I want to go somewhere else. And they trade AD and they really tear it back down to the studs. As the Lakers guy here on our show, was it worth it?
Oh, 100%. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, they won a championship.
Yeah, that's it. I'm seeing people say it wasn't, but you won a title. Like, that's what matters, right? If you could win a title every 4 or 5 years by going through a bunch of crappy seasons to get the one title season, sign me up every day of the week.
We're spoiled. Okay. Winning a championship is really, really, really hard to do, and it's usually a very rare thing. And so, yeah, if you win a championship, just everything else is gravy. Is it great that 2 of LeBron's 4 seasons they haven't made the playoffs? No, that's not what you would expect. And then that last season was just injury riddled and turned into this flop in the first round. No, that's not great. Sure. That hurts, but you ultimately won a championship. I have seen some fans out there who've said, well, Kobe would have done this, right? Or, well, 2 championships really was what he needed. Although I have a feeling the bar was just going to continue to move. If LeBron gets a second championship, well, he needs 3 or, whatever. But in my mind, as soon as they won that championship, that was it. It was a success. And then everything else, you deal with it from there. You look around the NBA, how many teams, if you said, hey, you've got to suck for 5 years, but you're going to win one championship, how many teams would say, sign me up? Yes, we're on board for that.
Half the league, 100%, because half the league would be like, hey, we might suck for 5 years anyway and not win a championship. So yeah, if you can sign me up for a title at the end, absolutely, sign me up. And that's not, I don't know that that's the worst way of thinking about it, right? The end goal, I always say this, the end goal is to hang a banner, but only one team can do it every single year. And that it's really, really hard to win championships. I think we get kind of messed up because teams like the Warriors show up, and then Warriors and Cavs, right? 4 straight years they play each other in the finals. And it's like, you kind of went into those seasons like, yeah, let's pencil these in, right? And maybe by the end it was fun, like, maybe it won't be these 2 teams. But yeah, I just do think it's kind of, I don't know. I think it's kind of, interesting to just see the different takes that people have had. And I think some of it is, let's get our jokes off about the Lakers. Let's, kick them while they're down. Some of that stuff by saying it's a failure and those kind of things. But yeah, I tend to more think it is, they succeeded. They won the title. And more importantly than that, for our real interest here right now today, I don't think this is the end. They're not breaking this up right now. It's it may be a year from now things go in a different direction, but not right now.
Agreed. I'm sure we got enough Lakers talk for our non-Lakers fans to stomach here, but let's get into a former Laker. Yeah, this hurts, Keith. I hate this. Lonzo Ball, season is officially over. I was holding on to hope that he could come back. I think he really matters for the Bulls, and this hurts their playoff chances quite a bit. This was I mean, this was the fun team at the start of the season, right? The team that was flying up and down the floor and killing teams and all of that.
Yeah.
I was really hoping to get to watch a fun Bulls playoff run. I'm not saying they're dead in the water or anything like that, but this absolutely hurts them and their chances in the postseason.
Yeah, I mean it's killer. They were at one point. Let me pull it up to make sure I have it right. They were 26-10. At
Mm-hmm.
one point, they'd gone on a 9-game winning streak to early January, and then lost Lonzo Ball shortly thereafter. Lost Alex Caruso as well for a period of time. That really killed their perimeter defense. Caruso still not fully healthy. He's dealing with some back soreness now too. They've been talking about. I think he's out of tonight's game against the Celtics. And Lonzo out, yeah, for the season. Last night it dropped. Well, it didn't drop as news. Billy Donovan shared it that he had another setback. He just each time they've ramped him up, he's felt soreness. He's what he's dealing with, because some Celtics fans immediately panicked, right? Because Robert Williams underwent torn meniscus. There's two different menisci, I guess, in your knee.
Mm-hmm.
There's one on the inside and one on the outside, and it sounds like Williams tore the one that gets more blood flow, is easier to heal from. And meniscus injuries are all over the board with recovery. Some guys played. Joel Embiid played through one all of last season, or last playoffs rather. So it's just not a thing that you can say it's one size fits all for anybody. With that, the other thing with this is too, Lonzo Ball's dealing with a bone bruise on top of it that is in a difficult place that again doesn't get a lot of blood flow, and it's hard to come back from. So we're in a position where he tried to ramp up about a week and a half ago, was shut down for 10 days. They thought, all right, let's shut him down for 10 days. We'll pick this back up. Tried again, same thing. And now officially today it has come out. His season is over.
Man. I mean, it's just
not just regular season, his entire season
right.
is over. Maybe if they made like a finals run, maybe then they could say, hey, he's feeling pretty good. But my guess is they're being very realistic too. And it's important to remember, as much as that sucks for the Bulls right now, this is a 4-year agreement that they have with him. They've got 3 more years under contract, and they want to make sure those 3 years are as good as they can possibly be. But yeah, the Bulls now, they seem like of the top 6, right? So the assured play-in teams, as those are all now locked in both conference. Well, I guess they're not in the West. Denver and Minnesota can still be decided there, but the top 6 in the East are locked in. The Bulls have to be the team. The top teams all would be content to draw in the first round playoffs.
And as it stands right now, and again, it's so tightly compact there between the Celtics, the Bucks, and the 76ers. Right now, it would be the Milwaukee Bucks that would draw the Bulls in the first round. But again, you've got a 3-way tie right now between the Celtics, the Bucks, and the 76ers. So any of those teams could ultimately wind up being the one to play them.
Celtics Bucks tomorrow. That probably will go a long way towards deciding who wins the 2 seed.
So how do you feel from the Celtics side of that? Like, are you, because ultimately you'd want to drop into the 3, but then again, it's a 3-way tie. Would that drop you to 4? It's pretty much impossible, isn't it? Okay.
So the Celtics are. No, I shouldn't say that, because they could go 0-3. I mean, there are 3 road games at Chicago tonight, on Wednesday night at Milwaukee, Thursday night, and then they play at Memphis on Sunday. Oddly enough, that game just got moved on to national TV. They wait on that last day to try to line up the best games. And that might be a game. It might be the main Celtics versus the Memphis Hustle in that game.
Nobody's going to play their starters.
We're going to see very many regulars in that game, because Grizzlies have literally nothing to play for. We don't know where Boston will be at that point. I tend to think you play it out and you let the chips fall where they may. Now, tomorrow night on the back-to-back, Al Horford supposedly has some back soreness. Both Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have been dealing with some knee soreness. If they're sore, don't play them, right? It's more important to be healthy. It's tough, because part of me says, as we can get into it now, the Nets with a win yesterday, the Hawks with a loss. The Nets have moved up to 8, so they're looking like they'll be in that 7-8. Cleveland is just limping to the finish line here. I mean, just absolute struggle city for the Cavs. So if the Nets pass the Cavs, then we're in a situation where the Nets are probably going to be the 7 seed.
Right.
And then that means the number 2 seed draws them. And that's do you really want to play the Nets in the first round? Probably not if you can avoid it. But I tend to think you got to play this out because I truly believe the basketball gods punish you if you start seeding shenanigans before like your very last game.
I think I agree with you with that philosophy where you don't want to anger the basketball gods, right? Yep. You just honor the sport, go out there and compete. Whoever's on the floor, you compete. You do everything you can to win the game, and you just let the chips fall. But even if you didn't have that mindset, let's say you were of the mindset of, I want to manipulate the system as much as possible, and I want to put myself in a spot where I'm going to draw the weakest team I can in the first round. How do you do that? I mean, look at how tightly packed. You could be trying to do that and have, I think, just as great of a chance of being unsuccessful as if you were trying to win all your game. Like, I don't know that there's a way to manipulate yourself into the right matchup because everything is so tightly packed here.
Yeah, I mean, that's both. Yeah, the 2 through 4.
Yeah.
You can't control what the other teams will do, and in the 7, 8, 9, 10, it's pretty jammed together, and I tend to think the Nets will probably come out of that. But I mean, this is a Nets team that they lost to the Hornets the other day. They lost to the Bucks. They lost to the Hawks. They weren't exactly great against the Rockets last night. They had to struggle to pull one out against the Pistons. They lost the game to the Grizzlies. So they closed at Knicks versus Cavs versus Pacers. It wouldn't shock me if they dropped one of those games. I mean, the Nets are just kind of a weird team like that. Especially, they don't play any defense. Yeah. So as long as you can get your offense moving up and down, we've seen the Pacers are playing free and easy. A lot will probably depend, right? The Knicks are starting to sit some guys. I think the Nets will win that one they play tonight. That Cavs game becomes huge because that's probably the last chance to knock them back down into that 9-10 game. Because if you're in the 9-10, then the best seed you could be is 8. And at that point, yes, then you absolutely want to be the second seed. So that's a whole lot of words and a lot of stuff said to say, who knows? I don't know what to make of this. We'll talk about it probably on Friday's show. We'll have a lot more clarity after these next couple days and have a better sense of where everything's going.
Is there a top 4 in the East and then a gap, or is there a top 5 in the East and 5 in the East and then a gap? And are the Toronto Raptors on the same tier as, say, the 76ers, the Bucks? You look point differential, they're not far off, even though they are 3 games back of the 76ers. What do you think? Are the Raptors in a tier by themselves, or do they belong in that top tier?
So here's how I think about the East, and this is timely because I was asked about this today on a radio appearance. I think the Heat, Celtics, and Bucks are all pretty even, provided Robert Williams is back for the second round against somebody good. Then I think Philly and Toronto are pretty even teams. Now they're probably going to play in the first round, which would make sense, right? They're probably pretty even. Then I think the Bulls are probably in a tier by themselves, but I just
they're in no man's land
with Chicago. Yeah, they're just struggling. And then, it's just the Nets would be in one of those top 2 tiers. I just don't know where they're going to be. And I don't know, how are they going to play? And let's see where that goes. And then obviously the rest of the playing is, bunched together as a grouping. But yeah, it really is kind of one of those things where this goes back to, this is why I don't mess around with worrying about seeding too much. Play to win games for now. Sit guys for health reasons if you need to, not for seeding reasons, and just see where it comes down to on that Sunday. And then Sunday, if you think you can manipulate your way into a good spot, maybe then you do it. But for now, just play it out and see where it goes, because who knows the way this is all going to shake out.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get into, speaking of things shaking out and players who are injured. Norman Powell, he's back tonight.
Yeah,
he's back. The Clippers getting
Paul
healthier.
George back last week.
Kawhi, maybe, we don't know. They're keeping things quiet there. They're keeping things quiet there. That was awful, but
boo this man. Boo this man in the comments.
But Norman Powell, great news. Norman Powell is back tonight and will be in action for the Clippers, and it could turn the Clippers into that team that you really don't want to see in the first round if they do make it through the play-in.
Yeah, we know they're the only West team in the bottom half that we know. They're locked in 8, so they're going to be playing Minnesota or Denver. Minnesota, man, oh boy, the Boston accent came out there on that Denver.
I heard that.
It's what happens when I get
Denver.
excited. Minnesota, they they blew it last night, losing to Washington. I mean, what an awful loss that was. You cannot have that
Mm-mm.
loss when Denver lost to San Antonio, and you could have been pulling right into being only a game behind them and making this a really tight race. So Denver's going to get 6 now. I feel really confident in that with them each having 2 games left. Denver hasn't clinched it yet, but they're going to get 6. So then I think that's going to leave us Minnesota and the Clippers. That's tough for the Wolves, right? They have a 5.5 game lead on the Clippers as it stands today. And this goes back to my whole thing of if you have a big enough lead, your spot should be secured. Because, all right, let's say the Clippers get them in that first game. And then let's say Pelicans or Spurs, whoever wins the 9-10, let's say they have a hot shooting night. Now the Wolves are out. And you have 2 teams with potentially losing records in the postseason, and the Wolves are out. And I get it. Take care of your business, right? In the play-in tournament, but it's just, I don't know. I just don't like it. I don't like that part of the play-in tournament because of that. But yeah, Clippers, every day they don't rule Kawhi out and say he's done for the season is a day I'm going to be maybe,
Yeah.
Maybe. Let's see. Hey, on the play-in tournament, since I just did my little rant on it, Adam Silver's doing a little talk today at the Board of Governors meeting, and he says they are very pleased with the play-in tournament. They see it as a likely fixture to stay as part of the NBA's postseason calendar. Potentially some tweaking to come to it. So
I think ultimately he's correct. If you look at the play-in tournament, if you're the 7 seed or the 8 seed, you hate it. But if you step back and you look league wide, I think not only does it create a little bit more intrigue in terms of who's going to get into the play-in tournament, and then the tournament itself, kind of that whole do or die scenario for the play-in tournament, emulating a little bit of the March Madness, right? So you've got that, create some exciting games, but then on top of that, how much engagement does it create for the teams that are in the 10th, 11th, even 12th seed that isn't there otherwise, right? You're keeping those fan bases engaged when they would have walked away long ago if you didn't have the play-in tournament. So I think that while there's the drawback of teams that are 7th and 8th saying, well, shouldn't we be playoff teams? Come on, But overall, I think it benefits the league more than it hurts.
I also think, too, it's done quite a bit to clearly curb tanking to some extent. Where now generally it's kind of right as we lead into the trade deadline and right after you'll see teams pivot, and now teams are still like look at the Kings for example. Now faulty logic maybe, but they tried to hang in there as long as they could and tried to make a real run at that, and barring some injuries they might have, seeing how things played out down the stretch here. But yeah, so that's one of the things where in a normal year that's probably post trade deadline you're like, all right, we're so far out of the 8, let's just get out of here. So that becomes something with that. A couple more things just because they're coming across right now from Adam Silver. He says there is a concern among the Board of Governors about players not playing a full complement of games. That's consistent. He's always kind of given the same message of, hey, we understand teams need to prioritize health and rest and those kind of things. But, I get it, right? They're in a tricky spot on that with that, because you also don't want to devalue your regular season when you're season tickets and everything. Also, this of interest for Eastern Conference teams, particularly Boston and Philadelphia, who maybe have unvaccinated players. No change coming in terms of unvaccinated players playing in Toronto, nor anything to do with that. The league will continue to follow the laws and the status, and that is the status of the situation in Canada. And he also added, players have known the rules for quite some time. So that's, I'm reading between the lines, but that's Adam Silver's way of saying, hey, you knew what the situation was.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Yep. So there we go.
Well, and we'll see if Adam Silver says anything else of interest there, but
here
we go. All right. Let's talk a little bit about this. Jabari Smith declares for the draft, which again, we're expecting to start hearing more and more of these things, but but there you go. So there's one of the top players that'll be picked in the draft come June. Teams.
Yep, got a couple other guys too.
No, go
Sorry,
ahead.
so we don't miss them. Ty Washington of Kentucky, Kennedy Chandler of Tennessee, Jalen Williams of Arkansas. Apparently, it was SEC day to declare if you play in the SEC with that. But yeah, several people there over the last couple of days have all declared to the NBA draft. And then Tyler Burton. I think people kind of get to know him as Richmond upset Iowa in the first round. Really good player for Richmond, so he's going to also declare. So we're just in the process. If we go back, there's two things at play here. One, a lot of kids, a lot more declare now because they can go through the initial process, get feedback workouts, and go back to school. So that's one part of it. The other thing is we're still in the year where players get that extra year of eligibility. That some guys are still dealing with. So some guys who maybe were already on college teams for 4 years still have that extra year that they could go back. They did that because of the messed up COVID season last year. They gave everybody one extra year of eligibility. So but we'll get more. Kind of the two names everybody's waiting on right now: Paulo Banchero of Duke and Chet Holmgren of Gonzaga. I would expect that's coming in the next couple days.
Yeah, absolutely. Last thing I've got here on our schedule to talk about for today, it's teams resting players down the stretch. I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but yeah, I mean, like even if you're looking at things from a betting perspective, it's really hard to look at these games with any kind of certainty because you just never know night to night. Playoff teams, especially once they're locked into their spots, there's some incentive to try to rest guys down the stretch here.
Trevor, sorry, I got to interrupt because this is big news. This is going to bring a big smile to you and I. This is per Mark Stein. Adam Silver just said the league is actively pursuing changes to the take foul in time for next season.
Let's go.
We win. There it is.
I love it. I've been saying all season, ban take fouls. Get rid of them. Please. I love it.
Here's my thought. One shot, ball back to the team that had the ball. Give them a free throw. So it basically kind of becomes almost like an illegal, to me, it's another version of illegal defense. Get back and play defense. The fast break is arguably the best part of basketball as far as the most exciting play. We don't want less of them. I don't argue the strategy of the take foul in most cases. Then you get the guys who they forget, oh crap, we're already in the bonus, and they give one up and it becomes a mess. But in general, I don't want less exciting plays. Let it play out. It's kind of funny. I bring this up a lot. The take foul originated in Europe and they got rid of they've legislated it out. They got rid of it basically in full. So it's your turn, NBA.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get rid of this thing. Again, I was happy with the changes the NBA made in terms of the foul rules last offseason. And we said the one thing that you need to get rid of this year, it's the take fouls. It's going to be something else next year. I'm sure there's always going to be changes, but glad to hear that they're going to try to get rid of that. Again, it takes away, the NBA, there's people who watch it just for the highlights, right? People who just consume highlights and you limit those when you take away the most exciting play in basketball, and that's the fast break. So good news. Good news.
Yep, big time. Resting players. We're not going to spend a ton of time. I mean, we just kind of talked at it, so that's something they're concerned about. But obviously, down the stretch here, you're absolutely right. If you're betting these games, I know, be careful. Self included, they're in the finals of a fantasy basketball league this week. There's now active discussion in a couple leagues I know of, at least, that are, hey, let's end next. At the end of last week, next season. But it's really hard because again, the Phoenix Suns, they're sitting basically everybody tonight in this game. I know somewhere Lakers fans couldn't have done that last night.
And they did that the game before, doing that the game after. They made sure they played them against the Lakers because of course. Yeah.
Well, we talked about it yesterday. I mean, if I was the Suns sitting as the 1 seed, I really don't want any part of the Lakers sneaking in as the 8 seed. But anyway, they're going to sit everybody tonight. Does that suck if you're going to the game? Yeah. I mean, it's not great, right? It's not good. Is it the smart thing for the Suns to do? 100%. They should be sitting guys. They play them just enough to knock off the rust. I already talked about that Celtics Grizzlies game on the last day of the season. So it's one of those things I don't know what you do to fix it at this time of year. Because what if you told the Suns, you got to go out there and play, and player X rolls an ankle and is out for 3 weeks, because that's how bad of a sprained ankle they get. And then the Suns get upset in the first round of the playoffs. Probably wouldn't happen, but just let's game that out. What do you do then? Like if I'm the Suns, I'm like, next time I'll pay the fine. Whatever the fine is, great. I'll pay it, and I'm gonna have my guys healthy. Like it's one of those things that I just don't know how you fix it.
And yeah, like, I mean, I think that speaks. The bigger question is, should you fix it? Because if you're the NBA, the playoffs, that's your grand spectacle, right? That's when you're going to get most of the eyeballs. You want your best players for that. So I think there's a league-wide incentive as well for the last couple of games of the season. Break out the bubble wrap, get these guys to the playoffs, and let's make sure that our top guys are playing when it matters most and when most of the eyeballs are on the NBA. So I don't even think there's a reason to fix it. I think fans understand what it means if you're buying a ticket to one of the last couple of games of the season, that there's a decent chance that some players are going to be shut down. It's a thing, and it's not just an NBA thing. It happens in the NFL as well. That's why most fantasy football leagues, they don't play the last week of the season, because most of the guys that got you there are going to be shut down anyway. This is just a common thing in sports. I don't think there's any reason to fix this particular aspect of resting players.
No, I'm completely there with you. I don't see any reason why you need to go this direction.
All right. Well, I think that wraps things up for today. Keith, I'm hoping tomorrow we can both talk a little bit about Moon Knight and what we saw from that. I can't wait to watch that one. And good stuff. And we'll see how things develop from here. Playoffs getting closer and closer. Keep an eye on that Eastern Conference, because who knows how that's going to shake out. And
for folks who watch us that might be baseball fans, maybe tomorrow you're listening to us, happy opening day. That's right. For most of the majors. Happy opening day. It's opening day still special. Like there's something still special about it. Less special now than when I lived up north and it was like finally winter is over.
Right.
That's what opening day meant. Now it's like, oh cool, it's still 80. Happy opening day. It's still a great day on the sports calendar.
Absolutely. 100%. With that in mind, our sister site, Dodger Blue, make sure you guys go check them out. They have a YouTube channel as well with tons of different Dodgers content. If you're a Dodgers fan, go check that out. Don't forget, subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. Make sure you turn on those notifications as well. And listen to the podcast version of this. Help out the podcast. Make sure you give us a 5-star rating and toss in a review over there as well over on Apple Podcasts. We certainly would appreciate it. Till next time, everybody. See ya. And stay safe.